Our webinar workshop today is going to be called our webinar today is how the right digital software can make all the difference. We're very excited to have the support of Conscious Counsel and Law is Fun in this. The community manager, Victoria from Conscious Counsel, many of you may know her. She's been a great support in pulling this together, and we appreciate that. We're also excited to have with us today Wendy Musgrove, the owner of Best Yoga Studios out in California. She's going to chime in a little bit later with her experience using digital waivers and WaiverSign in particular. And then I'm Brandon Lake. I'm the CEO of WaiverSign, and really excited to talk about this topic today because it's been a very hot topic. I know the community at Conscious Counsel and just throughout the world right now. Really, there's a lot of movement towards digital everything in our businesses. And we have people joining us today from, as I look through the list here, we have fitness services, yoga, massage, life coaching, gymnastics, dance, other health and wellness professionals. And we welcome all of you and are excited to have you with us. I think no matter what business you're in, we see so many of our processes moving towards digital. And digital waivers are a very important part of that movement. There are a handful of good options out there right now. We're going to discuss some of those. We're going to talk about why moving in the direction of digital can really make all the difference for you and your clients. We had sent out a poll, and if some of you haven't taken this, unless we already closed the results to it, you might be able to access that down in your panel where you click on polls, and you can see that. I just want to get a better understanding of how many are in our audience today are still using paper waivers and agreements, and how many have actually already moved over to digital. Bob, do we have any results around that yet?
Yeah, it sits at 60% using paper today, Brandon. So,
okay.
Yep.
So some good background to have. I would assume we have the majority that are still on paper. We have some that have transitioned over to digital. I imagine that's in a lot of different formats. And we'll talk about some of those today. I know there are a lot of questions around it. Is the digital format I'm using, is it going to stand up in court? Are there, any issues with it? We'll go through some of that as well. And by the way, we have Bob and Stuart with us today. They will be handling the chat. If you do have any questions there, you can certainly access the chat panel and ask those. Some of those questions will wait until the end. If they're a question that we think would be valuable for the whole group to hear, and then we'll go ahead and answer those live for everyone. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started with this. Before I get into it, I want to give you a little background as to how WaiverSign got started. I own a river rafting business called Western River Expeditions, and since 1961, Western has taken guests on overnight rafting trips through the Grand Canyon and the rivers of southern Utah. This picture right here is actually my son and I watching the sunrise in one of my favorite places on earth, which is Desolation Canyon in southern Utah. Now, in order for our guests to participate in one of our expeditions, they have to sign a waiver. So we had been actually collecting waivers for years. In fact, we had waivers stored in endless boxes since we had to keep them for years after the trip for legal purposes. And unfortunately, they didn't always look this neat and tidy. They might have looked more like this. Maybe not that bad, but I worried that if I ever had to find one of these waivers because someone sued our business, I'm not sure I'd be able to locate it. I worried about them getting damaged by fire or water. I worried that even if I did find what I thought was the waiver, I might not even be able to read the handwriting. Any of those problems in a lawsuit could take months to resolve, could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, could potentially shut down the business and create major challenges in life. So I looked at these stacks of paper and I determined we had to do something. We got together with a team of lawyers and insurance companies and we discussed the problems we were experiencing with paper. Storage was a problem. Paper waivers, as I mentioned, could be damaged by fire or water or simply not organized well. Legibility was a problem. Many of these waivers were completely illegible due to poor and rushed handwriting. The attorneys were concerned about collection and timing. Many of the businesses they were aware of were collecting waivers right at the last minute upon maybe someone was late for a class, or particular experience was about to begin. Maybe a line of people was behind them. They would sign without even reading or understanding it, and later claim as a defense in court that the business didn't give them enough time to read the waiver, that they were coerced into signing. And sometimes that would stand out as a defense. And another problem was delivering the waiver in the right language. That was sometimes a problem in certain communities where participants would claim that they didn't understand the waiver because the language of the waiver maybe was English and that wasn't their native language. And lastly, data entry was a problem. For companies that were using the waiver as a means to collect client information, the data entry was very time-consuming and costly. So as we looked at all these problems and we looked at a potential digital solution, we thought the digital solution would actually solve a lot of these problems. The storage problem was solved because each of the signed waivers could be instantly stored online and easily accessible, and we could do that in a secure way. The legibility problem, of course, was solved because people would be keying in their own information. That's 100% legible. The other great bonus with that was that we could actually validate the format of certain fields, like date of birth, email, phone, address. We could even store the IP address of the device that was used to sign the waiver. The problem with people claiming coercion is that they didn't have enough time to read the waiver. That was solved. We'd be able to allow them to sign in advance on their own devices. Even if they waited until arrival or check-in, we could still have them sign a copy on their own waiver and not hold up a line. They'd always have, the other bonus to that was that they would always have plenty of time to review it because the system would send them an email to where they could read it again. Now, the problem for some communities where participants spoke different languages, that would be solved with a language dropdown, where we could select from different designated languages. And the costly problem of data entry would be solved by having all the data stored in an application where users could easily access email lists, participant information, signed documents, demographic information, and all of that. And that was a major plus to taking this process to a digital format. So as we've seen in our poll, some of you have already made the change to a digital solution. You might be curious if you have the right solution. Some may be having a hard time knowing if they should really let go of their current paper processes. When we think about change, sometimes we feel like we're taking a chance, right? And it's something we're not familiar with. And that can be hard, right? Over the course of most of our lifetimes, we've seen a lot of change. We've seen big computers become smaller and people become bigger. We've gone from huge cell phones to small phones on your wrist. We've changed from skinny skis to fat skis. And thankfully, along with huge phones and skinny skis, we've even eliminated most cases of the unibrow. The floppy disk has transformed into something smaller than your fingernail. Typewriter's gone. Cassette tapes have been replaced. Thank goodness, could you remember this? And just like the DVD player and the fax machine, the paper waiver will become something we will tell stories of to our grandchildren. So the question is not if, but when you'll transition to digital waivers. And when you do, these are 5 key questions you're going to want to ask. Number 1, how easy is it for me to edit my waiver, find signed waivers, and access my contacts? These are things you're going to commonly do, so you'll want them to be very intuitive. Number 2 is how easy is it for my clients to sign, and how will they sign? Make sure that as you're evaluating solutions, you try the signature process yourself. See how you think it will feel from your client perspective. Be sure to try signing on your phone because a lot of customers will be doing that. Also think about what you need signed. If you're having people sign a service agreement and a waiver at the same time, find out what it looks like to have 2 documents signed simultaneously and see how easy that is. If you have a business that caters to minors, make sure you understand how the process looks if a parent or guardian is signing for a minor. Number 3 Does it store an actual signed document with a timestamp and IP address that you could easily take to court if needed? Now, this question comes up a lot. What is a valid form of signature? According to the e-Sign Act of 2000, various forms of electronic signature are actually acceptable. From checking an I agree checkbox, to applying a computer-generated signature, to actually creating a signature with your finger or your mouse. While some systems use one of these mechanisms, they don't really have a way to reproduce an actual agreement that has been signed, which can sometimes make things a little complicated to prove. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes, but that's a really important one. Number 4, how accessible is the support team and where are they located? Some of these waiver companies don't have much of a support team, or you'd have a hard time reaching someone on the phone. And so make sure you're comfortable with what they offer for support and that you can understand them. And then lastly, how much does it cost? Some platforms will charge what feels like way too much for signing and storing agreements. On the other hand, you might even see some free services out there, but it's also important, I think, to recognize you may not be getting the level of support you need when it really matters. I mean, these are really crucial things. I worry a little bit about using some service that may be completely free. So, really, if you look at some of the options out there for as little as $10 per month, can really bring you a lot of peace of mind. And we'll talk about cost and everything like that here coming up as well. So hopefully that provides a bit of an overview in terms of what to look for in a liability waiver solution. I want to take a few minutes here and take a closer look at WaiverSign. So when we set out to create this system, we really wanted 4 things. We wanted a platform that was easy to use for our clients and the participants. We wanted to offer fantastic service, and we wanted it to be affordable for businesses of all sizes. On top of that, we also wanted to help the environment, not just by saving paper, but we wanted to find a way to give back even more. So the cool thing is that for every business that uses WaiverSign, we actually plant a tree in that business's name. We created an alliance with the National Forest Foundation, and we've now planted thousands of trees thanks to our awesome clients. So that's kind of fun as well. So let's take a closer look at how the system actually works. First, you'll send us your waiver document, and we'll actually take that, what is likely a PDF or a Word document, and we'll create a digital version of that inside the waiver application. You can always come back to this screen and you can make edits to it at any time. Very, very easy and straightforward. The document can have sections for initials if that's part of your agreement. You can have accept and decline clauses. It has a lot of different features within that. You can determine if it has an expiration date. You can specify the starting age for minors, depending on what country or geographic region you're in. Sometimes that varies. And you can determine whether or not you'll even have minors or parents signing for minors at all. So you can determine those options in your process. And then you can select from 16 standard fields. We'll generally just take the fields that are on your Word document or PDF, and we'll see what you're selecting on it, and we'll replicate that on the digital side. But in addition to those standard fields, you can actually create your own custom fields. And this can be helpful if you're doing maybe a service agreement or membership agreement, and maybe it's for massage. I have a sample question up here that's what type of pressure do you prefer, light, medium, or deep. So you can actually create things that you would normally have on an intake form, or getting some history of your clients so that you can best help them. And you can actually weave all of that right into the system, which is kind of cool. You can decide if you'd like to receive notifications each time someone signs. And if you'd like to direct people back to your website or some other page when they're done signing, you can actually put in a redirect URL. So when that's all finalized, we click Save, and then we publish it. And we get a link for your clients or participants to sign this document. Once we have that, we basically need to make a decision as to how we want to distribute that link. Some of the most common ways are to add the link to your website. You could put it in an email or a text message. People can just click that to sign. A very popular one recently is a QR code. Now that QR codes have kind of come back to life with the recent events in our world, and everybody's familiar with them. These are a great way to use some signage or a sticker at your location, people a poster on the wall. I've seen it lots of different ways, and those work really well. Or you can set up an iPad inside a kiosk app and let people sign that way. So lots of different ways to get that to your people. So what does it look like when people actually, click one of those methods? They scan the QR code, click the link in an email, a text, whatever. They're presented with a page like this. Now you would actually see your logo and your colors here. So it's branded really nicely to match all of that. And you would see any language options that you've set up. And you'd see the options you've chosen for adults and minors here. So if we go ahead and start through this process, I'll just show you what it looks like when you're signing for an adult. So I'll click continue. Here I'm going to fill in the information that it's requesting. This again is any of the fields you've chosen to display here. I've got just a very simple settings with my name and phone number, email address. That's what a custom field might look like. When I'm done with that, I click next. The system will tell me what documents I need to sign. If this is just a waiver, it would look like this. If it's a waiver and a membership agreement, I would see both of those listed. So after I look through this step, I click begin signing, and we're presented with the document. Now, the nice thing about the document here in WaiverSign is that it looks fantastic on desktop, and it's also easily readable on mobile. And this is something to really look at with digital. There are some platforms that show a document in mobile in like what looks like very fine print. It's all squished down. And that's really important. I mean, if somebody can't read it, they could claim that as a defense later on. You certainly don't want that. So make sure it's very readable in all environments. Once I come down to the bottom, in WaiverSign, we simply apply a signature, so the system will actually use your information here to generate a signature. And I can apply that. Again, whether I'm writing that with a mouse or my finger or applying it, all legal forms of signing digital agreements. And then I certify that my information is correct and agree and submit. And then what happens after that is the participant receives an email. And that email has a button that they can click to actually view signed PDF. And this is what lawyers and insurance companies really liked as well, because it gave an additional opportunity for those who have signed the waiver to have a copy of it, which is we don't generally do when we're signing paper documents. So if I click this, I can see that the PDF actually has a unique document ID, and it also has a timestamp. It even has the IP address of the device that they use to sign the document. And those can all be very helpful data points from a legal perspective if you ever need to show this document in a lawsuit. At the bottom of the document, we see all the information they provided, as well as their applied signature. So let's take a quick look at what this looks like from the business perspective. So what we just saw there was your client or participant's perspective, right? So now we're going to put on the hat of the business owner and say, okay, what does this look like if I were to want to go and see the waivers that my participants have signed? Participants don't need to log into anything like this. This is strictly the admin side of WaiverSign. So let's say you have clients who've signed waivers on their phones, computer, kiosk, whatever. You want to log in and you want to access some client information or a document. So I would put in my username and password. I sign in. I'm going to land on a dashboard. When I land on the dashboard, I can see how many documents have been signed. I can also scroll down and see some stats about participant age and gender if I'm collecting that data. Well, I'm going to go over here and click on Sign Documents. And I can actually look up my name here, or my client's name, and I can see what's been signed under that name, or email address, or phone number, or whatever. It will give me the matches of that information. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this one. That's the record I want to see. And I can verify the information that this is indeed the document that I want. And if I click View Document, I'll actually see that same document that my client received in their email. The document ID, and the stamp, the IP address, the signature at the bottom, everything. And I can simply download that or print it or whatever I need to do if I want to reproduce that at any point. So it becomes very, very easy. I can also go back, and up here at the top of the application, I can search for any name, email, or phone number right here in this search field. So I enter something here, and as I click enter, I will actually be taken to contact information for that person. So I can see all of their history of waivers that they've signed. Can be helpful if you have, waivers that need to be signed annually or different things like that. I can see all of that history. So what I'd like to do, before we talk to Wendy for a minute about her experience transitioning, I wanted to just show you a live example from a conscious counsel client. So you can kind of see how some of the agreements that maybe some of you are familiar with, what they look like within WaiverSign. This company here is Yellow Leaf Yoga Studio. They're a conscious counsel client. I also use WaiverSign. They actually have a really great concept. They're offering private and group yoga sessions with experienced deaf and ASL fluent yoga instructors. So really, really, really cool for that group. So in this WaiverSign account, they actually have both a service agreement and a liability waiver. I want you to see how the system works when you have two documents. And in fact, I'll just point this out too. The fact that they actually have two documents is really important from a legal perspective. I know Corey talks about this a lot in his webinars. Attorneys, they generally always counsel clients to separate your membership or service agreement from the liability waiver. So each document serves its own purpose, and you're not diluting or confusing the purpose of that document. So let's check out how easy these are to sign together. Okay, so what I'm looking at here is the page that I would be sharing with a client or participant when they need to sign these. So I'm going to take this a step further this time and say that maybe my daughter and I are going to participate in this together. And so we're going to sign both for me as the parent, and I'm going to sign for her as the minor. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. We'll just say that we're going to sign it for one minor. Okay, this loads up. Go ahead and select my information. Let's say I was born on January 1st. Way back when. And then I'll plug in, let's say I have a daughter named Elizabeth, and I'll plug in her date of birth. The nice thing about this, again, this is part of that data validation. You can see that the system knows she's a minor, and as of January, if you were born January 1st, to qualify as a minor, you'd have to be born no earlier than 2004. So the system looks at that, and that's kind of a nice validation. If I choose something outside that range or put in a date of birth that's off up here, the system will actually warn me. So I've put in my information for myself as the participant and the parent, and I put in the information for my minor. Again, these fields could be anything that you're needing to collect, can be there. And this tells me that I have 4 documents requiring a signature. I have a yoga waiver agreement and a service agreement for me, and a yoga waiver agreement and service agreement for her. So take a look at what this looks like when I go through the signing process. It's pretty straightforward. First, I'm presented with the waiver agreement, and I'll, of course, read through that. And then I come down to the bottom, and I've got my information here, and I apply my signature as the participant and parent, and then I apply my signature on behalf of the minor as the parent. And then I agree and submit. And then I'm presented with a service agreement. Again, this would be the agreement that doesn't contain the terms of the waiver, but more the terms and costs of services and so forth. And I do the same thing here. I'm going to apply my signature as the parent and participant, and as well as the parent and guardian of the minor. Now, what's nice when I submit this is that it actually generates an agreement for me, generates a signed agreement for me signing on behalf of my daughter, and it does the same thing for the service agreement. So it's actually generated 4 individual agreements, and I received 4 individual emails. And then as I click done on this process here, I can be taken back to the website again, or whatever page that I wanted to have somebody land on. So hopefully that helps to see the process live. It's really quite simple. Whether you're signing multiple documents, adults, minors, very straightforward. So I want to jump over to, before we wrap up, just jump over with our special guest, Wendy Mosgrove. Now, Wendy has a pretty fun background. Wendy, you were a professional ballerina in Connecticut, as I understand it, and you were actually trained as a workout instructor by Jane Fonda. So how cool is that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh my goodness. You surprised me. I didn't think you were going to ask me that.
Well, I saw it on your website. I was like, that is so cool.
So I danced professionally for about 8 years, and I left Connecticut and decided I didn't want to dance anymore and moved to San Francisco. And I was the first time in my life I never exercised. And so I started gaining weight, and I thought, oh my gosh, I got to get in shape. And Jane Fonda had opened up a studio in San Francisco on Maiden Lane. And I went there, and at the time I still looked like a ballerina, even though I wasn't really dancing anymore. And so she approached me and said, would you like to learn how to teach, exercise classes? I need stretch and tone teachers. And I said, sure. And so that's how I started working for Jane Fonda. She was an incredible boss, so generous, took us out to sushi all the time. And she was just a lovely person to work for.
That's great. I love it. That's a fun background. So let's talk a little bit about WaiverSign. So we have, clients from various industries sign up for different reasons, and they love the system for lots of different reasons. In your case, Wendy, what made you decide to sign up with WaiverSign?
It was actually COVID. When COVID happened, I realized, and my business was shut down, I realized when I get back, open again, I'm going to need to have verbiage that talks about, liability in terms of getting COVID. If anybody came down with COVID, I didn't want to be sued. So I thought, well, since I have to redo my waiver, I had heard about WaiverSign from another studio owner. And so I investigated, and I couldn't believe how simple it was. And just like you said, I had so many filing cabinets full of paper waivers. It was such a pain. They were illegible. I couldn't, it took forever to put the data entry in. So WaiverSign just streamlined the whole process for me, not only getting people to sign the waiver, but also for getting that information into my database. It was super easy.
Yeah, I love it. And that's really, we actually saw that a lot. A lot of people thinking, through COVID, needing to make this change. It was a big catalyst for a lot of things going digital. What's kind of been your response of clients? How did they feel? I mean, you were signing paper waivers before. Now today they're just signing digital. Do you feel like they appreciate the digital format? Is it easier for them?
I think they love it. They love it. It's such a great plus that you also send them an email so that they can print a hard copy of it if they need it or if they want it. And no, they love it. No, it's streamlined the whole process for everybody, for the clients and for us.
Yeah. What would you say now that you've been using it? How long?
Oh gosh, it's been about, I want to say almost a year.
Okay. And what do you feel like have been some of the biggest benefits that you've received from using it?
Well, one of the great things is if people still make mistakes, because I still have to get somebody to type the admin person to type the information and put it into our database. And so if they mistype the phone number, I can easily click on WaiverSign in within a minute. I can get all the information that I need. It's right there. I don't have to go searching through filing cabinets and all that cumbersome stuff.
So it kind of gives you an additional backup of that client information and records and so forth. I like that. What would you say? I know there's probably others who are just considering moving to digital, maybe some that are actually considering moving to WaiverSign. What would you say to other people who are thinking about this and maybe a little bit nervous about letting go of paper?
What I would say is, honestly, if you aren't using WaiverSign, you're just crazy. You're crazy. It is so easy. It is so cheap. It's made my life so much easier. I can't say enough good things about WaiverSign. Honestly, there's no reason to have paper waivers at all. You got to go with WaiverSign.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those perspectives. I think it's helpful for others to hear from a peer in the industry, and we really appreciate you joining us to just share a little bit of your experience. I want to wrap up just with a quick summary and let you know about the special pricing we put together with Conscious Counsel. So of course, moving over to a digital platform, moving over to WaiverSign, you're going to simplify all of your online agreements into a single link. Again, if you have multiple agreements, you'll just get one signing link, and that's all you need to worry about. Of course, it's going to save time, reduce costs. You're going to make it easy on mobile and very legible. Makes it easy to get the people in advance when you're doing it this way. You can certainly streamline the check-in process or onboarding for new clients, and let you kind of free up some of that check-in process, I think, just to provide great service and welcome people and not even have to worry about paperwork, which is wonderful. You can get it out to them in advance that way. And of course, as Wendy mentioned, you're going to eliminate storage, get organized, and that's huge. That's been huge for our business as well. And some people just love the fact that it makes them look more professional. Being able to use something, you saw kind of how the system is styled to look like your brand, your business, and people love that. It gives you that branding and storage, and if you need multiple languages, you can do that. Expiration dates. I didn't mention this, but the system actually has some API capabilities. If you're utilizing something else and want to talk to us about that, that's something we could look at as well. So the great news is, as Wendy mentioned, the system is very affordable. And we've actually put together some special benefits for Conscious Counsel and Law's Fund clients. So just $10 a month and 10 cents per digital waiver after the first 100 signed waivers. So that $10 a month includes 100 signed waivers. And that actually gives you unlimited users, unlimited document templates or agreement types, unlimited storage for the life of the account, and unlimited support as well. If you're a bigger business, there are custom plans. If you have a franchise with multiple locations, or you sign really high volumes of documents, we can talk about that as well. So if you decide that that's something you want to move forward with, the getting started process is really straightforward. There's just a handful of steps. So you'll submit your waiver service agreement, whatever you have, you'll submit that to WaiverSign. If you don't have those yet, we really suggest that you work with Conscious Counsel or Law's Fund, get some rock solid agreements in place. Spending, a few $100s on those things now, it can really save a lot of money in the future and give you a lot of peace of mind knowing you've done it right. So just a plug for them. Once you submit those documents to WaiverSign, we'll select your fields again according to the fields on your documents. We'll send you a link and a QR code that you can actually share with your participants. And then the system will automatically collect and store signed waivers for you. If you want, you can set up automatic notifications to know every time someone signed one. And then you'll have access to easily look them up in the application. Or you can have people show you their waiver confirmation email when they show up to just show that they have signed. A lot of people will do that as well. And then, of course, all the way along, you'll have our 5-star support team. They'll be there to help you with any questions that you have. So if this looks like something you'd like to try, you can actually scan this QR code right on your screen to start a free trial. There's going to be a page that pops up with a green Try It Free button on the page. That'll direct you to a form to fill it out. If you want to go to the link on your computer, because that's where you have your document stored or whatever, just go to waiversign.com/consciouscounsel. You'll get to the same page that way. And I'll give people maybe just a minute to do that while I bring Bob back over and find out if we had any questions, Bob, that we want to answer before we wrap up today.
No, Brandon, we just had one question I was able to answer. It was basically, does WaiverSign provide the waiver or the template? And said no, but Conscious Counsel is the place to get all that done. And once you have it created, go ahead and shoot it over to us and we'll get it created for you. So.
Yeah, well, and that's a great question, and I will just address that for a second here, because a lot of companies are out there and they're looking for something quick online, and you will find, if you go out and Google massage therapy waiver or yoga waiver or fitness or gym waiver, different things like that, you'll find templates, you'll find different things from other businesses. And I was just talking to an attorney yesterday about this, actually, and he was sharing with me an experience where someone had done just that. They grabbed a form, it was a gym, grabbed a form online, thought it looked good, and used it for their business, found themselves in a lawsuit a couple years later, and they actually lost the lawsuit. They were wrapped up in months, actually years of litigation, spent a ton of money on it, and really tarnished their reputation as a result. And it was all because they had grabbed something online that really didn't fit their business. And the court argued that they hadn't taken into consideration the actual risks that their type of equipment and weights that they had in their gym and the services that they were offering, some of the classes and so forth, weren't described in the waiver. It was, something else, where the services just they didn't match up. And so they said you really didn't describe what people were getting into on your waiver based on what reality was for these consumers. And so that's a really big deal, and a waiver may cost anywhere between $300 to $900 to put together. But if you think about what value that is, to have somebody really ask you the right questions and put that together in a properly worded waiver that has all the right, forum selection for where you're located geographically, and all these various pieces that you're just not going to find online. We certainly don't get anything from them. We just want our clients to have good, rock solid waivers in place. We just provide the service to get them signed. So hopefully that provides, if others had that question, maybe that background gives you a little more information around that. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at this. I'll just mention one other thing before we close, and that is we've actually added some additional services recently in addition to waivers. We now have website design and development services as well. And if that's something that you're in need of, maybe you're starting out or don't have a website or want to revamp yours, we took the same approach with this. Had a lot of questions from our customers around, hey, you guys do this, and you seem like you're technically savvy with all of this. Could you help me with my website? And we offer that as well. And they are fantastic and so easy to edit. And so you can find, we have designs for spas, fitness and yoga studios, personal trainers, dance studios, and health and wellness coaches. So if that's something you'd like help with, we'd be happy to give you a free consultation quote. You can scan this QR code or visit resmarkweb.com. And certainly if you have further questions, you can feel free to visit our main website, WaiverSign.com. You can connect with us through our contact form. And again, Wendy, I just wanted to thank you so much for your time today. Vic, thank you for your help in putting this together. Hopefully this has been a good overview of digital waivers, as well as a little behind the scenes view of what a specific program looks like, being WaiverSign. And just hope everyone has found this to be helpful. We hope to come back to the community again soon, and wish Wendy the very best in all of her endeavors, and wish you all the best as well, everyone else that joined us. And just want to say thanks to everybody.